The knock came at exactly 2 in the morning, soft but urgent, slicing through the fragile silence of a cheap hotel room where exhaustion had finally pulled a single father into sleep. He woke with his heart already racing, the kind of fear that only comes when life has trained you to expect bad news after midnight. When he opened the door, the hallway light spilled in, revealing the last person he ever expected to see there. The woman who controlled his job, his income, and unknowingly, the future of his child. His boss stood at the threshold, eyes unsteady, voice low, asking to come in because something needed to be said that could not wait for daylight. Before the story pulls you deeper, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and the quiet strength of people who keep going when life keeps pushing them down, take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, comment your thoughts, and subscribe to the channel. Your support keeps stories like this alive. He had taken the hotel room only because the electricity in his apartment had been cut off again. His paycheck barely covered rent, childcare, and the medications his 6-year-old son needed after the accident that had taken his mother. The room smelled faintly of detergent and old carpet, but it was warm, and there was a bed where his son could sleep without shivering. That alone felt like a victory. He had put his boy to sleep hours earlier, one small hand curled into the sleeve of his worn jacket, trusting his father with the blind faith only children possess. Every choice he made, every humiliation he swallowed at work, was for that child. At the office, he was invisible unless something went wrong. He arrived early, left late, and never complained. His boss was known for being sharp, distant, and impossible to read. She ran the company with precision and never mixed emotions with business. To him, she was simply the woman who signed his paychecks and reminded him, sometimes without words, that he was replaceable. He never imagined she knew anything about his life outside the office, let alone that she would stand in front of him in a hotel hallway at 2 in the morning. Letting her in felt like crossing an invisible line. The room suddenly felt smaller, the air heavier. She looked nothing like she did at work. The confidence was still there, but it was cracked by something raw and human. Her hands trembled slightly, and there was a weariness in her eyes that no expensive suit could hide. She glanced toward the bed where his son slept, and something shifted in her expression, as if she had stepped into a reality she had avoided seeing for a long time. He didn't ask questions. Years of struggle had taught him that survival sometimes meant listening before speaking. She explained, not with polished corporate language, but with halting honesty, that she had followed him after work without fully understanding why. She spoke of loneliness hidden behind authority, of regrets that echoed loudest at night, and of a mistake she had made earlier that evening, one that threatened to unravel her career and the company she had built. She had no one else she trusted enough to be honest with, and somehow, impossibly, she had thought of him. As the night stretched on, the walls between them slowly dissolved. He shared pieces of his life he usually kept buried, the way his world had collapsed the night his wife never came home, the months of learning how to braid hair, pack lunches, and cry silently in the bathroom so his son wouldn't hear. He talked about the shame of asking for extensions on bills, about the fear of losing his job and failing the one person who depended on him completely. He did not ask for sympathy. He simply told the truth, the way tired people do when they have nothing left to pretend. Something changed in her then. She looked at him not as an employee, but as a man carrying a weight that would have crushed many others. She admitted that she had always measured success in numbers, in growth charts and profit margins, until that night forced her to confront how empty those victories felt when faced with real human pain. Sitting there, in a dimly lit room with a sleeping child a few feet away, she saw the cost of the system she had helped build. When she finally left, just before dawn, nothing had been promised. No deals were made, no miracles spoken into existence. Yet the silence she left behind felt different, as if the room itself was holding its breath. The days that followed were filled with the same routines, but the world seemed subtly altered. At work, she watched him more closely, noticing how he skipped lunch to finish tasks, how he covered shifts for others without complaint. A week later, his supervisor called him into an office, and for a moment, his heart sank, prepared for the worst. Instead, he was told that his role was being adjusted, his hours made more flexible, his pay increased just enough to breathe again. No explanation was given, and none was needed. Life did not transform overnight. There were still struggles, still nights of doubt and exhaustion. But slowly, stability returned. The electricity stayed on. His son laughed more. The dark circles under his eyes began to fade. And through it all, his boss remained professional, distant again in public, but kinder in quiet ways that never drew attention. Months later, he would realize that night at the hotel had not been about power or desperation, but about two broken people colliding at the edge of their limits. She had learned that leadership without compassion was hollow. He had learned that his quiet endurance mattered, that his story had value beyond survival. If this story has begun to move you, please pause for a moment and leave a comment sharing how it made you feel. Your words matter more than you think, and they help build a community where stories like this can be heard. Years passed. His son grew taller, stronger, and full of dreams. The company grew too, but differently now, with policies that reflected understanding rather than cold efficiency. He never spoke publicly about that night, and neither did she. Some moments are sacred because they are unseen. On the evening his son graduated from school, he stood in the crowd and felt a familiar presence beside him. She was there, applauding softly, pride evident in her eyes. Not pride in profit, but in people. Their eyes met briefly, sharing a silent acknowledgement of how far they had both come. Life rarely changes with grand speeches or dramatic rescues. Sometimes it changes at 2 a.m, in a small hotel room, when someone finally sees another human being instead of a title or a role. Sometimes it changes because kindness finds its way through the cracks of exhaustion and fear. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you that even the quietest lives carry powerful stories, please like the video, share it, and subscribe to the channel. And before you go, comment the word hope if you believe that compassion can still change lives, even in the darkest hours.